Ifeoma had everything: beauty, elegance, and a life sculpted from wealth. In the heart of Ikoyi, her home stood like a palace behind iron gates and whispering palms. Inside, marble floors gleamed beneath her footsteps, and the air was perfumed with imported roses. But no amount of silk or silver could fill the silence in her chest. For 7 years, she waited, prayed, fasted. Her nights were soaked in tears no one saw. Tayo, her husband, had once been attentive, bringing her papaya at midnight, whispering promises by the pool. But time had drained his patience like an empty glass. Now his side of the bed was cold, more often than not. Ifeoma smiled for the cameras. The tabloids called her the Rose of Ikoyi, unaware of the war she fought in silence. Every baby shower she attended felt like a needle in her heart. She had a drawer filled with baby clothes she couldn't bear to give away. At night, she wrote letters to a child who did not yet exist. Friends suggested adoption. Tayo said little. His absences grew longer, his excuses more rehearsed. The mansion, once filled with jazz and laughter, became a hollow museum of dreams. Still, Ifeoma waited, not out of weakness, but out of a hope that refused to die. Somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, "Your time will come." It was a rainy Thursday morning when the miracle came. Ifeoma stood barefoot in the bathroom, staring at the pregnancy test with trembling hands. 2 pink lines. Her knees gave way, and she slid to the floor, sobbing into her palms, not from fear, but from the overwhelming joy of a prayer finally answered. When she told Tayo, his face lit up in a way she hadn't seen in years. He lifted her off the ground and spun her around, laughter echoing through their quiet home. That night, they shared a meal together without phones, without silence, only soft music and dreams of the child growing inside her. 9 months later, Zuri arrived with a cry that shattered the stillness of the mansion. She had Ifeoma's almond eyes and Tayo's deep dimples. Nurses called her a golden child, and the name stuck, Zuri, meaning beautiful. A name that sang through every hallway and room. The house changed overnight. Teddy bears replaced abstract art. Lullabies hummed through the walls. Ifeoma's days revolved around soft blankets, nursing sessions, and whispered prayers of gratitude. She took to motherhood like the ocean takes to the shore, naturally, completely. Tayo softened too. He came home earlier, took pictures of Zuri sleeping on his chest, bought her a crib carved from Ghanaian oak. For the first time in years, Ifeoma felt whole. Her hands were full, her heart fuller. This was the life she had dreamt of, not just wealth, but love, laughter, and a little girl who made everything else fade away. Zuri turned the mansion into a playground. The vast compound that once held silence now rang with laughter, tiny footsteps, and squeals of joy. Tayo commissioned a custom mini castle, painted gold and pink, for the garden. Zuri called it Princess Tower. Ifeoma planted hibiscus and sunflowers around it, building a world where magic felt real. The lawn was fitted with soft turf. Swings hung from carved Iroko beams. They even fenced the flower beds with rubber rails. Every corner of their home bore the imprint of their daughter's delight. Zuri, always barefoot, ran with ribbons in her hair and joy in her eyes. She chased butterflies, fed crumbs to birds, and twirled around the fountain near the gate. Ifeoma often watched from the balcony, filming those moments with the tenderness only a mother could know. Each giggle felt like a balm on old wounds. Tayo seemed happy too. He made silly faces, read bedtime stories in animated voices, and brought back gifts from every trip: a pearl anklet from Nairobi, a stuffed zebra from Johannesburg. On some evenings, they all sat on the rug, building towers from blocks, their laughter warming the high ceilings. Ifeoma cherished these golden afternoons. Sometimes she would cry, not from sadness but from gratitude. This wasn't just motherhood, it was healing. But even in paradise, danger lurks unseen. Beyond the high fence, the main road buzzed with fast-moving cars. Tayo, ever cautious, gave one rule: never leave the gate open. Ifeoma repeated it to every driver, maid, and security guard. Zuri was curious, fearless. The world was still too big for her tiny feet. The laughter didn't fade all at once. It slipped away quietly. First in the way Tayo stopped coming home early, then in how he began guarding his phone like a secret. Ifeoma noticed the lingering perfume that wasn't hers, the hushed calls behind closed doors. She asked if everything was okay. He smiled, said work was demanding. But Ifeoma had lived with this man too long not to know when he was lying. Then came her Kemisola young, magnetic, and dangerously bold. They met at a private event. She knew Tayo was married. She didn't care. He was powerful, wealthy, and bored. Easy prey. The affair began in shadowed hotel rooms, but desire has a way of loosening caution. Soon, Tayo was bringing her to the mansion when Ifeoma was away. The staff were warned to stay silent. Kemisola wore Ifeoma's silk robe, drank from their wine cellar, and laughed too loudly in the living room. Ifeoma felt the shift: less affection, more silence. Zuri would ask where Daddy was. Ifeoma would smile and say, "Working late, my love." But her heart was already breaking. She poured everything into Zuri, hiding her pain behind stories and lullabies. Then came that Saturday. The house was supposed to be empty. Tayo was too confident, too careless. He invited Kemisola over again, blind to what was coming. The gate, the rule, the child, forgotten in the haze of indulgence, and fate, ever watchful, began to move. The day began like any other. Lagos clouds hung heavy with rain, and Ifeoma dashed out to the market, Zuri safe with the maid. She had barely reached the stalls when she realized her wallet was still at home. Frustrated but calm, she turned back, unaware that her return would split her life in two. She pulled into the compound and froze. The gate, Tayo's one unbreakable rule, stood wide open. Her heart pounded. She rushed inside. The living room was chaos: wine glasses, rumpled pillows, a heel by the kitchen door. Tayo stood there, half-dressed, stunned. But Ifeoma didn't see him. She only saw the absence. "Where's Zuri?" she asked, voice already cracking. No one answered. She ran back out, barefoot, shouting her daughter's name. The wind carried her voice beyond the gates. Neighbors had already gathered. Someone pointed toward the road. She ran. Time warped. Her breath caught. Horns blared in the distance. Then she saw it. A still car in the middle of the street. A crowd, blood on the pavement. A tiny pink shoe lying alone at the edge. Ifeoma screamed. An animal sound, raw and endless. A baby, a miracle, was cradled in a stranger's arms, wrapped in a white sheet, lifeless, beautiful, gone. Tayo arrived minutes later, face pale, eyes wide, but no words came, only silence, the kind that kills you slower than any wound. Paramedics tried to take Zuri's body. Ifeoma wouldn't let go. She rocked her child, begging God to wake her. But the gate had been open, and now nothing would ever be the same. The mansion once filled with laughter, now whispered with ghosts. Zuri's toys lay untouched. Her room still smelled of baby powder and joy. Ifeoma barely left it. She clutched the pink blanket to her chest, rocking back and forth, whispering lullabies to the silence. Tayo moved through the house like a stranger. He didn't speak much, and when he did, the words cut. "Maybe you left the gate open," he said one night, eyes cold. Ifeoma stared at him, stunned. "What are you saying?" "You rushed out," he muttered. "Maybe you forgot." But she hadn't. She never did. The staff said nothing, heads down, eyes averted. The truth hung in the air, thick as smoke, but no one dared breathe it. She spiraled. Meals went uneaten, mirrors were avoided, friends were ignored. She stopped dressing up. The woman in the tabloids, the poised, glowing wife, was gone. Tayo carried on. He returned to work, took meetings, smiled in public. Ifeoma watched him from afar and wondered how he slept at night, how he moved forward when her world had shattered. Her mother, Maman Kem, came from the village, saw her daughter's sunken eyes, and stayed. She filled the home with prayer, herbs, and soft cooking smells. She didn't speak much, just held Ifeoma's hand when the tears came. One night, Ifeoma dreamt of Zuri, running barefoot through sunflowers, laughing, glowing, free. "It's okay, Mummy," she whispered before fading into light. When she awoke, sobbing in her mother's arms, something shifted. The ache remained, but the fog thinned just enough to let in a breath of air. It was the first sign of survival. It was a quiet afternoon when the doorbell rang. Ifeoma, in her wrapper and headscarf, opened the door and froze. Standing there was Kemisola, barefaced, trembling, nothing like the woman who once paraded through her home in silk and wine. "I just need a moment," she whispered. Every fiber in Ifeoma screamed to shut the door, but something else, curiosity, anger, fate, made her step aside. They sat beneath the mango tree, Zuri's favorite spot. The branches swayed gently overhead. Kemisola fidgeted, voice breaking. "I was there, that day. I ran when I heard you coming. I forgot to shut the gate. I didn't know she'd gone out. I'm sorry." The words landed like stones in still water. Ifeoma stared, her chest tight, her breath shallow. "He let me carry it," she whispered, "the guilt, the blame, all this time. I was scared," Kemisola said, "but I see you now, and I couldn't stay silent." Ifeoma stood. No screams, no tears. Just silence and fire. She walked away, not because she was done, but because she was finally beginning. That night, Tayo returned home, whistling as he removed his shoes. He paused when he saw her waiting in the center of the living room. "She told me," Ifeoma said, voice calm but sharp as a blade. Tayo's smile vanished. He didn't ask who. He didn't deny it. "What now?" he asked, trying to sound amused. Ifeoma rose. "Now you feel what I felt. You lose what I lost." Behind her, stillness was a storm he never saw coming. While Tayo slept soundly in his deception, Ifeoma had been planning. Quietly, carefully. She had gathered proof, contacted lawyers, and sealed every crack he could crawl through. The divorce hit the headlines like thunder. Ifeoma didn't just leave. She exposed him, the affair, the cover-up, the truth behind Zuri's death. Lagos buzzed with scandal. Investors pulled out. Contracts dissolved. Tayo's empire began to crumble, brick by shameful brick. Ifeoma wasn't vengeful. She was focused. Her fight wasn't for revenge. It was for Zuri, for truth, for the woman who had lost everything and dared to rise again. With her settlement, she launched the Zuri Foundation, an organization for grieving mothers and child safety advocacy. Her new home sat by the water in Ilashe, painted in soft whites and blues, filled with light, silence, and healing. The sea whispered where pain once screamed. Photos of Zuri lined her study, laughing, running, alive. Ifeoma didn't hide her grief. She transformed it. Each toy donated, each mother helped, became a thread in the tapestry of Zuri's legacy. At a charity gala months later, Tayo appeared, thinner, older, diminished. He avoided her eyes, but as she passed, she leaned in and whispered, "I survived." He said nothing. He didn't need to. His silence was its own confession. And Ifeoma? She walked away with her head high, no longer just the wife, or the mother, or the widow of innocence lost. She was reborn, and in the space Zuri once filled, she planted something eternal, hope.